Are you struggling to get your offense going in Broken Arrow? Or maybe you're sick of playing reactive and want to take control of the battlefield? Either way, this video is for you. Without a proper understanding of an effective offense, you will be at the will of your enemies and a victim to hesitation. Here you will learn to overwhelm and outsmart your enemies by execution of sound offensive strategy. First, we will talk about foundational aspects of attacking, then move on to strategies and mistakes to avoid, and capping out with a summary. Now let's go ahead and talk about some foundational knowledge that you're going to need in order to be effective when establishing an offense. So let's go ahead and talk about first and foremost our prudent map control. So here you want to establish a map control but within limitation. You want to pick a lane or an area and stick to it. You do not want to overwhelm yourself or spread your units thin. You don't need to control everything, just enough to pressure and force reactions. This will allow you to be the most effective and efficient when capping zones or pushing the enemy. For our next point, there's power and balance. You want to aim for balance. Unit composition aims to be versatile enough to counter any potential threat. You don't want to go all in on one aspect of the game. If you build around one aspect, you will force reliability on areas of deficiency in your deck, and this is going to be put onto teammates, which is selfish play and unsound strategy. You want to be able to handle anything that could come to your way. Having a balanced deck or a balanced unit composition will allow you to handle this. You also want to make sure that you're being aggressive but not careless. Always attack with purpose, not just because you feel like it. Being intentional will make you more precise and require less thinking. Since you will have a plan ahead of time and will not be confused about what to do, you can just get right to the action. This will help prevent you from being wiped when you do pushes. That way you're able to maintain a pretty good offensive line. Focus on deck strengths and supplement deficiencies. Build around your deck strengths but plug the weaknesses. If, for example, you lack heavy tanks, make up for it in numbers to overwhelm the enemy and capitalize on side shots. This is one way to capitalize on this or supplement your deficiency. You should also constantly be applying pressure. The enemy should always feel like you're about to hit again. Do not give them room to breathe. Giving them room to breathe allows them to think and be smart about their decisions. You don't want them to be smart about their decisions. You want them to make mistakes so that way you can capitalize and keep the advantage. Make sure that you also have adequate support for your front line. Offenses without logistics are doomed. If you cannot replenish your front line, you will falter and fail. You really want to attempt to be mindful of openings and have a flexible strategy. If the same round of attack isn't working, then have an alternative, such as flanks and utilizing them if sound. If one route is locked down, flank or probe elsewhere. Do not keep attacking the same spot. They're just going to keep weakening your forces and cause you a lot of attrition and waste time. Cohesion is a requirement. Spread out enough to avoid AoE, area of effect, but stay connected for support. Your units must be within range of each other to support one another. If not, the enemy will isolate your units and eliminate them. Keeping cohesion makes you harder to kill. So now we're going to get into some strategies. To give you some foresight, look at the enemy's deck composition. Before you start, you want to check the enemy lineup. This allows you to see the specialization and what they could potentially have. For example, if they have heavy on the armor or on the air. You want to make sure that you have recon on the front and the flanks. Reconnaissance is your friend. If you can see them before they see you, you're at an advantage. You need intel to influence your next move. Going in blind is costly. Keep a drone in the air, low or at high altitude. High altitude for general overview and low for hidden units nearby with higher stealth rating. When attacking, I like to sneak in a sniper team or two to gather information on unit setup before attacking. This allows me to maximize effectiveness by responding appropriately. Combined arms over spam. Combined arms elevates your offense by tenfold. Tanks, infantry, and air working together are way stronger than one spamming. There are some exceptions, but however, those aren't the rule. Your offensive line will be much stronger with unit versatility, allowing you to handle more situations and units than a spam can handle. The next strategy that we're going to be talking about is hitting and running. So doing this method is a really good way to attrition the enemy and cause frustration. I like to have tanks come up super close using the cover of buildings to cause a lot of damage to enemy units held up in a position. Using buildings to sort of tank the missiles. Using infantry equipped with rocket launchers, I also like to hide them up close in buildings or in forest to be able to hit side shots and rear shots on unsuspecting tanks and light vehicles, then use smoke from the units or from artillery to provide extraction, strike fast, and then reposition. The next strategy is exposing the weak points. So you don't want to smash into their strongest position, right? You want to look for soft flanks, soft targets, isolated units, or unsupported assets. You want to be patient and don't attack their strong points. Make it easier for yourself. Don't make it easier for them. Take it bit by bit. Don't chew off more than you can handle by sending in a bunch of units into their strongest point, because then you're just going to make the battle a lot longer than it needs to be, and you're just going to attrition yourself. If you can break the enemy over time continuously, you will frustrate and weaken them, capitalize, and then move in and take the objective. Now we're going to talk about the strategy of rushing. You want to rush when the timing is right. Don't hesitate when their guard is down. You want to expose that, capitalize it, and take advantage of it. If you have the enemy on the run and the intelligence gathered to know that they aren't baiting you, then push in, but do not overextend. Take the objective, but not chase back to spawn, because if you chase back to spawn, then this is going to allow them to regroup. Then when they get enough points, they're going to counter you and wipe your entire unit. Next, we're going to be talking about utilizing smoke. Smoke is OP, so you're going to want to use it. Smoking their position will not allow them to fire, since it will prohibit their line of sight. You can take advantage of this and rush to their position and take them out. Also, when crossing, make multiple paths for smoke to prevent getting artillery fired or drag bomb. Because if you just sort of make one line of artillery fire for smoke on you, then the enemy is probably going to know that you're going to move through there, and they're going to set a either bombing run or a artillery run, and this is going to be really catastrophic for you. So also you could pre-fire smoke as well, have them do a fire mission, then hold fire and release when ready. You can do this for ambushes during hit and runs to do a retreat. This is what I like to do when I'm doing sort of guerrilla warfare. I put some units in the forest that are RPGs or that have Maz, and then once they get some shots off and they destroyed what they needed to destroy, then I pop the smoke and I get them out of there. One of the most essential parts of this game is going to be recon, so finding and eliminating the recon and blinding them is going to be really advantageous to you, especially when it comes to the information battle, because once you blind them, then you're going to be able to control the tempo. And one of the ways that you could do this is by using CQC recon to counter other recon and weed them out to gain recon superiority. Or if it comes to drones, then having something like a slam ram if you're on the US side, or just any sort of radar unit to counter drones, and only turn the radar on when you're aware of the enemy having drones. This way you're able to really blind them and capitalize on this fact and just expose them, not being able to identify what units you have. This is going to give you the advantage of surprise, because they're not going to really have the correct response to whatever you might bring. So this is just going to give you an extra edge that can be really advantageous to turning the tide of the battle. Something that you're also going to be really wanting to keep in mind is that you're going to want to spread out your units but maintain unit cohesion. Because if you spread out too much to the point where your units aren't going to be able to support one another, then the enemy is going to pick you off one by one and just make you attrition that faster when you have a front line. But if you keep them too close, then they're going to be at more risk of artillery and bombardment runs. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind, and you're also being able to just be more effective and efficient with your units and keeping them alive a lot longer. I'm going to stop real quick right here and just take a quick moment to say thank you to Sigil and Cora for really helping me out and improving my content over this past couple weeks, giving me a lot of good feedback and criticisms on what I could do to sort of overall improve the quality and just the presentation of my content. So that's why I haven't been really uploading a lot, because I've been switching over softwares and just trying to really take the feedback and criticisms of Cora and Sigil and just make sure that I'm implementing them and taking this more seriously. So thank you to them. And also, if you guys are looking for a really good Discord to join, then I'll put the link to ours in the description below. Also consider checking out baarmory.net. They have a lot of good information that's going to be really helpful to you when it comes to Broken Arrow, and I will be getting up a dedicated video to the website soon. I just got to really focus on learning DaVinci, because I'm switching over, like I said, softwares from Vegas over to DaVinci, so it's going to take a little bit, but I'll get there soon enough. So now let's go and get into our final 3 strategies, and this is going to be the one that I like to use a lot. It's the weaving in and out strategy. So this sort of method of weaving in and out, it's basically, again, you're pulling units in and pulling them out at the same time, depending on what unit has the higher the HP. So what I like to do is I like to keep, let's say, a fresh tank in the back line, or close enough to the front line where it's going to be able to be efficient and effective at supporting them. So let's say I have 2 tanks. I have one Sep B3 up front and one Sep B3 in back, and the one that's going to be in the front, let's say it gets like to maybe less than half health. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch. I'm going to sort of weave the healthy one in and take the healthy one out, and then I should have logistics in the sort of close enough to the front line where I'm able to replenish the HP of the damaged vehicle. And this way I'm always able to keep fresh units on the front line. So again, you're going to be wanting to keep weaving in and out, repositioning, probing. Don't become static. If you remain static, you are not being as effective as you could be. Always be pulling back units and moving up healthy ones to keep the enemy constantly, again, fighting fresh units and attrition them, because this is going to really wear them down over time and just going to make your front line even more effective than if you were just keeping the same units at the front line that are low HP, then switching them out for fresh units. In order for a lot of these strategies to work, you want to make sure that you're keeping supplies close. Don't let your units run dry mid-push. This will allow you to constantly have fresh units on the field without having to bring them up all from the spawn. Because if you have to constantly bring units all the way from spawn, it's just going to take much more time and be less efficient when it comes to resupplying your front line and just bringing reinforcements. If you just have supplies that are close enough to your front line, then you're going to be able to quickly reinforce your units and just constantly put the pressure and constantly be attacking over and over again, not giving your enemy enough time to really respond when it comes to being able to properly attack you. What I like to do specifically is I like to get, like, say, a large supply cache that's sort of halfway between the first point, or the point wherever the point that you're attacking and your spawn point. I get it sort of far away. I'm going to drop like 10,000 supplies far away enough where it's going to be sort of in a safe position, but it's close enough where I could have a, let's say, like an MTV or a logistics vehicle quickly go get supplies and bring it to the front line. So I'm always able to do logi runs with supplies and just able to quickly reinforce the amount of supplies that I have on the front line. So that way my units are always able to replenish and just be fresh all the time when I need them to be. The last strategy that we're going to be talking about is the Blitzkrieg. So the Blitzkrieg, the general idea is to overwhelm the enemy with quick and decisive action by pushing through a weak point using mobile units and support units. And now this could be really a mix of combined arms, because you're going to want to really just push through as quick as possible with an overwhelming amount of units. And I like to use mainly this one. I pretty much do this with the Russians because I could have a lot of light vehicles just quickly overwhelm the enemy units, especially if they have like 3 or 4 heavy vehicles, and I could get about just a load of artillery units, a load of vehicles, BMPs or Spruts. Then I'm able to really push them and put a lot of pressure on them and hit them from multiple sides. I could do some damage on the front, and I could do some damage on the side and also on the rear, just completely overwhelm them. This is going to allow me to quickly take a position, quickly take a cap point, and cause a lot of sort of attrition to the enemy players as well. This one's really effective, and I'll put the example up here on the screen so you can see this. And then this way is really fun to do too, but you got to be really careful, because if you do more of amassing on this one, I like to keep them in groups of 2, but if you do an amassing with this one, you're at a pretty big threat to bombing runs and also artillery, so you gotta be really careful when you're doing a push here. So now we're gonna go ahead and talk about mistakes to avoid. So the first mistake that you're gonna want to avoid is massing up, because if you mass up, this is just gonna make you an easy target for artillery and for bombing runs. So trying to really avoid this mistake is gonna save you a lot of frustration in the future, and really going to help you keep your units alive that much longer. You're also going to want to really avoid being too aggressive or overextending, because if you are pushing too far without backup, then you're just going to get wiped. And I do this a lot too, so this is something that I'm trying to be more mindful of and trying to improve upon, is that, you know, once you get them to a certain point, it is really tempting to want to keep pushing them even further, even closer to their spawn point. But the problem with this is that if you do this, you're overextending and you're not really protecting the zone. And protecting the zone is what you're going to really want to focus on after you push them out of there and really destroy their line. But you could push up a little bit, but after you do so, then just push back and make sure that you're spreading out to avoid artillery or bombing runs. And then you can also reorient to support your friendly units that need some support to push whatever zone they're having trouble with. This is going to be a lot more effective than trying to push back to their zone and just camp it. Try to also be really mindful of not making the mistake of not having any supplies to support your units, because if you don't have any ammo, then you're not going to be able to fight. And if you aren't able to replenish the health of your units, then you're going to be really less effective when it comes to defending or getting pushes onto enemy key positions. And also, like I said, I like to have a supply cache in the back, something that I could do logi runs with, so I'm able to always continuously just bring up fresh supplies for my units to regenerate them and to give them extra ammunitions when they need it. You also want to avoid not constantly putting pressure, because if you just give a slow attack, this is going to give your enemy time to react and reinforce. By continuously putting pressure on the enemy players, you're going to be able to not allow them to have enough time to breathe and really think about what they're going to want to do next. Because if you limit the amount of time that they're going to be able to think about it, then they're going to not really make the best decisions, and this is just going to work out in your favor. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to movement is being static. So they're not constantly moving. So after a successful attack, let's say you were able to get a really effective artillery run a fire mission on an enemy position, you want to make sure that you're really mindful of moving those units, because if you do not move, then they're just going to counter artillery you, or they're going to bomb run you. Same thing with infantry or tank units. So after a successful attack, you must move, because if you're not constantly moving, the enemy is going to be able to identify your position, and they're going to really counter that. Especially a good player, they're going to counter that because they're going to know that you're remaining static, and they're going to capitalize that, take advantage of it, and eliminate those units. Now, the last mistake that you're going to want to avoid making is not having a supply cache to make supply runs for your vehicles. Now, this is something that I've been continuously talking about because it's really important, because if you have a supply cache somewhere really safe, you don't always have to keep in mind like, oh, I need to be aware of what units I need to keep bringing out supplies for this and this and this. You could just already have supplies in the back, and if you have make a priority of having, let's say, at least 2 logistical units, let's say supply trucks, to continuously make supply runs, or just keeping them next to the supply cache, so whenever you run out of, say, or you're getting close to running out of supplies on your front line, you can just bring them up immediately, and you don't have to really think about, oh shoot, I need to call up a helicopter to bring supplies at this point, or I need to bring up another Logi vehicle with this point, or this amount of supply points. Like, no, you already have it in the back, and you have your priority units that are going to do supply runs for you, and you're just going to be that much more effective and efficient when it comes to managing your units. So that's going to be it for today, guys. And if you guys did enjoy this content, then make sure to subscribe and let me know what else I could do to improve the quality or just the presentation or production overall. And again, thank you guys for all the feedback and comments below. It really does mean a lot to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say about this video. So I'll catch you guys in the next one.